What's going on, guys? Alex back at you. Today, an episode of How To, slightly different How To. This is going to be a full service kind of video of a marker. Obviously, I have a Planet Eclipse Geo 3.5 here in front of me. This could also qualify for Planet Eclipse Geo 3.1 and 3 as well, because it's pretty much all the same. But yeah, this is not a field maintenance because this is not the quick everyday thing. I'm going to show you guys how to get down inside of the rig and make sure your eyes are clean and all that kind of good stuff. So let's go ahead and bring the camera in and let's take a look at what we're dealing with here. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and take a look at this Geo. I am going to do the power core as well here real quick, just because I don't think I've done a field maintenance video for Geos. I know I did the Ether one, but I don't think I've done one for Geos yet. So with the 3.5, obviously it's lift up on that back latch and you can pull out the power core. On any of the other ones, you're just going to have to unscrew it. So if we put the gun aside real quick, this is the IV core, so if you have an IV core, it'll look like this on the inside, or a 3.5. Other than that, these two pieces will not be attached. So with the 3.5 or the IV core, even the IV core that's, I'm sorry, I don't mean the IV core. The IV core doesn't, on the older models, screw into itself either. It just sits. On the 3.5 and the GSL, however, it does screw together. So you can go ahead and unscrew those two pieces, and then you can push out the bolt from the front can. As you can see here, these both say GSL, you know, whatever, instead of IV core. Not gonna complain about that. So as far as standard regular maintenance, what you're gonna do is wipe off all the old grease and grime and everything like that. And I just redid this one not too long ago, so I'm not gonna do it again. But go ahead and wipe off all the old grease and grime. I'd use a microfiber cloth if you have one. If not, paper towels are okay, but it's not really a good substitute. You can start to get a little scratchy with those. So yeah, go ahead and wipe off all the grease. I'd start with the bolt. Go ahead and put a nice even amount of grease, as you can, hopefully with the lighting, should be able to see there, around the two O-rings on the bolt, so that all those all the small gaps in between the O-ring and the actual metal of the bolt is filled. And you know, there's a good little chunk remaining around it, but you can still see the O-ring. I'm actually going to add just a touch more on this one. And go ahead and spread that around the bolt. So you can see there what that looks like. The other thing I would do, because there's an O-ring on the inside of this can right in the front here that needs to be properly greased, I usually go through and just put a small amount right up here on the front of the bolt instead of trying to coat it and then do the inside. I think this is a little bit easier. So I'll show you guys just how much I do, just because I don't want that to get messed up and then you have a whole ton of grease and stuff in your breech. That's about how big I would do, and you're going to have even a little bit left over. So at this point, just spread a nice, even, thin coat around the front of the bolt. And you can see I have a little bit left over. And go ahead and get rid of that. So you can kind of see that nice, even, that thin coat that I put around the bolt right there. And what that's going to do is when you go ahead and put that inside the can, that's going to take care of coating that O-ring. And I'd probably cycle that a couple times to make sure it gets nice and coated. And then if any starts to pool or pile up on the front of the bolt after you do that, you can go ahead and wipe that off so there's not a ton of excess grease starting to get into your breech and all over your paint and stuff like that. Other than that, I put a nice touch on these two outside O-rings, because those are static O-rings. They don't move, but they still need to seal properly so your gun doesn't leak. So go ahead and put a nice touch on those. You don't need any on the front one. Every once in a while I'd put a little touch just to make sure that O-ring's not really drying out or anything like that, but I wouldn't coat it like you're coating the other ones. You know, just a little extra, just a little tiny bit extra. If you got a little pinch or something like that, you can go ahead and make sure that one's nice and slick and smooth. But other than that, I wouldn't put a whole too terrible large amount on there. And then as far as the back goes, you can take the, on the 3.5, you can go ahead and take off the back latch so you can unscrew this prop shaft and get it out. I wouldn't. It's not necessary. The only thing you really need to do is make sure that this O-ring right here on the front or the middle of the prop shaft is nice and properly greased, because that's what the bolt is going to be sliding around. And obviously wipe down everything else, just to make sure there's no foreign material in there, dirt, debris, leaf matter, whatever. At that point, you can go ahead and, with the GSL and 3.5, you can go ahead and screw those back together. With everything else, they just kind of slide on and sit against each other and at a resting point. And now we can go ahead and just slide this back into the Geo. All right, so moving on, I want to make sure that the POPS ASA is nice and clean and free of debris. So what you can do there is, if you push the button in so you get the POPS ASA to the off position, you can push it in even further and pull the ASA further forward. At that point, you'll see it's really, really loose. If you tilt it forward, that spring will just fall. That spring pin will just fall right out, that button. And then at that point, that's the only thing that's actually holding the front of this POPS ASA on. So with this, I'm just making sure that there's no stuff starting to get gunked up in here, so when you're pushing it on and off, it's not getting stuck or anything like that, or it's not pushing it down as far as it needs to. So make sure the inside of that is nice and clean. And then you'll see this pin right here that floats back and forth, and it's secured by an O-ring on either side. You'll see right there. Just make sure those are nice and clean. That's that pin that pushes the pin inside the ASA out to hit your tank pin so you can get air pressure. After that, at that point, just to make it clean, you don't really need to grease or lube that thing. Obviously make sure it's not dry rotted. But at that point, after everything is clean, you can go ahead and you'll notice that in this big cavity right here, where you can kind of see my finger showing through, in the front there's a much bigger hole than in the side. You'll see that. So what you want to do is line that big hole in the front of it, right? No, there we go. With the hole right here. So if you go ahead and line those up, and you take the spring-loaded push button and you put it through, it'll go all the way through. And so at this point, it's nice and loose, just like it was before. So you're going to do just the opposite of what you did before. If you push it all the way in really, really hard, you'll be able to slide it back into what would normally be the off position, and then it's secured and nice and back on. So let's now go ahead and take a look at this regulator. So first you need to get this air channel pipe out of the way. It does screw into itself. It doesn't screw into either side of the gun, whether it be the trigger guard or the reg. So if you take the pieces and you screw them into themselves, you'll see this thing get nice and short. And I think the easiest way to get it out from there, instead of trying to rip it out, this part of the reg still swivels. So if you just take it and you swivel it out like that, it comes out no problem. You want to make sure the O-ring on either side of this has a bit of grease and it's nice and sticky, so that it's lubed and it seals properly. So make sure that's nice and done like it is, and put that aside. So at this point, go ahead and with the rubber grip and all, I'm just going to unscrew the rag from the marker, and we can go ahead and put the marker to the side. So to get at the insides, I think the easiest way, if you really want to get all the way down to the inside of it, you actually really don't need to take the rubber piece off if you don't want. I'm going to, but I think the easiest way is to peel the bottom up and around, just like that. So it's like that, and then you can unscrew this bottom locking nut right here. That comes right off, and then the swivel will come right off. So the only reason to really do this is these two O-rings that seal either side of the air transfer tube swivel connection. You want to make sure those are have a decent coat of grease, so they, same with the air transfer tube, they seal. Just for demonstration's sake, I'm actually just going to put this back on to show you guys that you don't have to actually take off the rubber grip and all that. So when putting this back on, you'll see that the air transfer tube kind of has two different directions. You can make it so the hole is kind of facing up to the diagonal or down to the diagonal. You want it facing up to the diagonal towards the gun. So just be aware of that when you put it back on. And then you can go ahead and put that locking cap back on the bottom. And now at this point with the rubber grip, I just put my finger through the hole on the bottom, and then you can just pull it and it'll stretch over just like that. So to really just the insides, obviously this one's kind of almost falling out already. But if you just take it, turn it upside down, and you give it a good, let me just pop this back in so you can actually see what I would be doing. So if it's nice and in there, you want to get that piston spring out. You turn it upside down and just give it a good tap. Of course it fell out before I give the tap, but if you just give it a good tap, the piston and the spring will just fall right out right there. And you want to make sure that this piston O-ring is nice and covered in grease. I'm actually going to redo this one right now. Wipe that off because these pistons will get very, very, very dirty really, really quickly. So wipe that off, and you even might want to grab a Q-tip and get the inside of this, which I will do. So I'm just going to grab a Q-tip, and being careful not to leave any fibers or anything like that left over, I'm just going to get the inside of that cavity and make that all nice and free. These will get dirty super, super, super quick. They will get covered in crap and grime, and it looks really, really nasty. So this might be one of the more regular things that you want to do, is at least clean this off. And so we can go ahead and put that aside. Actually, I'm just going to grease it first so I don't forget to when I put it back in. I'm going to go add a touch of grease just like that to the outside and turn it and give it a nice decent coat all the way around. So as you can see, all the gaps between the O-ring and the metal again are full of grease, but you can still see that O-ring. There's a fuzzy right there. I want to get rid of that. But you can still see that O-ring. Nice, good, liberal coat of grease, but not too much. Really, really, it's pretty perfect as far as I would say. So as you can tell from that daub that I put on there, I do have some left over. So that's roughly how much grease you want to do on there. And that spring just kind of sits on there like that. And as far as the whole valve on the inside, if you take the right size Allen key provided to you in, if you have the packaging, your Eclipse Allen key kit, or if you just have any Allen key size, go ahead and you just want to put it in the bottom where you would adjust the velocity. And if you just keep screwing it in like you would be turning the velocity down, you just keep going and going and going, eventually it'll just come out like that. And so you have this whole piece here. So you'll see this brass piece and the metal, I don't know if it's steel, or I'm not too sure if it's steel or aluminum. But these two pieces do separate. You can put an Allen key through these holes, and obviously I'm using the same Allen key, but if you put, if you held it like this and put another one through these holes, you would be able to unscrew this. That's where you get to the valve and the little reg seat that's in there. But we're not going to do that. That's absolutely not necessary. The only reason to do that if it was actually broken. So what you want to do, this grease is a tiny bit old, so I'm going to go ahead and wipe that off and just put a new dollop of grease. Don't want a whole super lot, so you can kind of see how much I put on there. And then go make sure that's an even coat all the way around on both of those O-rings, because you want those to seal nice. So there you go. You can see how much grease I put on that. Hopefully the camera is focusing properly. That's really all you need as far as grease. So let's go ahead and throw this right back together. So with this, screw threaded side down, you can just go ahead and drop it right into the reg, just like that. And then you'll see it kind of sits there. Just keep pushing it the rest of the way down with your finger until it stops. So at this point, the easiest way to do this is put your finger down in there and hold it down, pushing up towards the bottom of the reg. Put the Allen key back in it and go counterclockwise like you're unscrewing it. And eventually those threads will catch. Usually they catch right away. And you can just unscrew it all the way back so it's right back where it was. And then we can go ahead and put this piston back in, and it just kind of drops down, and you might need to wiggle it around to get it to seat properly. You know, sometimes it just doesn't go in right away. Come on, there you go. Yeah, so just shake it around a little, just mess with it, and eventually it'll just seat back down just like it should. So at this point, we can go ahead and put this back on the gun. In case you're wondering, if you want to clean out everything that's behind here, this front grip just slides right off just like that. This is a body plug. Don't touch that ever. So really, unless you need to take the frame off or anything like that, which we're not going to do because there's really no point to it, you can go ahead and just kind of leave that front rubber piece on there and screw the reg back in until it stops, and then you can keep swiveling the rubber grip around and everything until it lines up and all that. And so as far as putting the air transfer tube back in, I'm going to take the swivel and turn it out towards me. You want, on a Geo, you want the smaller side of the air transfer tube on both sides. I was going to say something else, but you want that smaller side of the air transfer tube going into the trigger guard, and you want the bigger side of the air transfer tube going into the reg. So I'm just going to it just press fits in there, and then you can, if that was swiveled all the way in, you can kind of swivel it down until it lines up, and then just unscrew the air transfer tube from itself, and it'll just work all the way in. And just kind of keep going until it stops, and there you go. There's your air transfer tube done. So as far as making sure your eyes and everything are clean, if you want to go ahead and take the right size Allen key and just unscrew the eye cover screws ahead, and I'm just going to use this to lift that out just like that. So you just take your eye cover out, and other than that, just going to gently pry up on the eyes. You know, grab a Q-tip or something like that, and I like to wipe off the inside of the brake beam eye, just to make sure there's nothing blocking it. And then you can go ahead and Q-tip out the little gap in there. Kind of show you guys right there. So you have your brake beam eye. So clean off the inside of that, and then the little machined slot where the eye sets in, which is going to be that one right there. Make sure that's nice and clear of dirt and debris and stuff like that, so that your gun can see properly. And while you're here, you might as well take your detents out and check to make sure your detents are all set. This one is all good. If they're all bent and destroyed, you definitely want to replace that. If you have the spare parts kit that came with your gun, there will be extra detents in there. But there you go. At this point, you can go ahead and put the eye cover back on, and the screw, and go ahead and secure that back down. So really, as far as in-depth maintenance, that's all I would really ever touch on this thing. You really don't need to get any further. If you want to clean out inside the grip frame because you got shot in the grip or something like that, all you got to do is unscrew these two screws right here, open up the grip panel, and you'll be able to cotton swab out or Q-tip out anything that's really in there. Other than that, I wouldn't really, there's nothing else to really take out or change. Geos are really, really simple guns. And there's really nothing else to them. So there you go, guys. If you have any questions about anything that we went over today with the Geo, or anything that I didn't go over, please feel free to leave a comment down in the comment section below, and I will definitely do my best to get back to you and answer any questions that you have. So other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video on the maintenance of the Geo 3.5 and GSL and Geo 3.1 realistically, and Geo 3. If you like the video, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like button. It really helps out the channel a lot, and I would definitely really appreciate that. And that's all I got for you guys today, so I will see you guys next time.